Hey, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to another Magic Puzzle Quest video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over the 6.6 patch notes that are going to be ultimately releasing the new Outlaws of Thunder Junction set to our game. So, let's get into it. You'll notice in the intro, I said Magic Puzzle Quest. I'm trying to train myself to say it that way instead of Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest, because apparently there is no Magic the Gathering in Magic Puzzle Quest. It's just called Magic Puzzle Quest. And if you search for the game in the App Store, you won't find it by Magic the Gathering. You find it by Magic Puzzle Quest. So I'm going to try and be good and do that, just so that I've got a little bit more continuity with the game. Second thing, I'm going to be doing this a little bit differently than how I have in the past. As I'm going over the new mechanics, I'm going to explain what they do as opposed to just reading all of the text here, right? I figure you're probably watching the video because you want to hear my take and how things actually work. So I'd love to hear from you guys if you feel like this was more helpful for me to do that, which winds up cutting a little bit of time out of the video, or if you would rather that I actually read everything for you. So either way, let's get into it. So we've got our first new mechanic, right? We're going to have a whole bunch of mechanics, I should say. So we've got mechanics, we've got Planeswalkers, we've got a new event, and we've got some bug and event fixes and changes. So we're going to cover all that. First new mechanic is called Crime. Crime is going to be a new evergreen that you'll see on some of your cards. And basically anytime that you cast something that has crime, you're going to have committed a crime. And then that crime is emblem, this little outlaw, is going to appear on your Planeswalker, and then you'll have that crime emblem until another card removes that crime emblem. Most of the cards, if not all of the cards, that wind up having crime on them don't take the crime emblem away from you. So it's really just your opponent playing a card that takes the crime emblem away from you. And as long as you have that activated, cards with crime are going to have bonus abilities. So this one here, for example, Blood Hustler, is going to commit a crime as soon as it enters the battlefield, because anytime you play something with the little crime symbol on it, then it's going to immediately commit the crime. So you play this, commits a crime, and then at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you've committed a crime, which you will have because of this, you're going to get +1/+1 permanently on the Blood Hustler. Then activate 2 black, your opponent loses 3, you gain 3. So basically, commit crimes by playing things that have crime. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. There's another way that crime can work though, and so I wanted to go over that because it's kind of interesting in that there's a slightly different application here. So if we take a look at Duelist of the Mind, so you play this and you're going to commit a crime. This one says when you draw a card, this creature gets +1/+0, and then when you commit a crime, you're going to discard your hand, draw 5 cards, and this effect can trigger up to 2 times per turn. So with a card like this one, it's going to make it so that every time you play something that commits a crime, you're going to trigger this ability over here. Now, this ability can trigger a maximum of 2 times per turn. There's definitely some cool synergy that you could use with something like this and Knowledge is Power as an example, where you could just draw a whole bunch of cards, get a whole bunch of reinforcements. But either way, I'm just trying to go over the mechanics here. So to boil it down, right, crime, play a card with crime, you're going to commit a crime. You're going to get the crime emblem on your Planeswalker, and your cards that have crime are going to have enhanced abilities. Some of those cards are going to require you to play something with that every single turn. Some of them are not. It seems like a pretty simple mechanic, honestly. It's definitely different from how it works in paper. But for Puzzle Quest, I think that this is actually going to be very easily playable and slotted into a lot of decks. We've also got a Planeswalker that's going to be based on crime, but we'll take a look at that when we get there. This here is going to be the crime symbol, and that's what the evergreen is going to look like. Next mechanic is Saddle. Saddle's going to work a lot like vehicles have worked in the past, right? Where they have a crew and then I guess it's more like paper is more like that, right? So Saddle is going to work as that if you've got a creature that has a power equal to or greater than the saddle number, then every time on the battlefield, then every time the creature with saddle attacks, then that saddle effect is going to activate, right? So as with this one here, Calamity Galloping Inferno, as long as you have a creature on the battlefield that's power is 2 or greater, then every time this thing attacks, the saddle is going to trigger and you're going to get this bonus effect here. So this one's bonus effect is when this card becomes saddled, reinforce your first creature 2 times until end of turn. Something cool about this is pretty much all the cards with saddle are like saddle 2 to 4, meaning that they're all incredibly easy to activate. And you could actually just wind up playing a deck with a whole bunch of saddle creatures where they all just saddle and mount each other. No extra phrasing intended there. But anyways, so you've got here like the saddle and things get mounted, and then you get these bonus effects when they attack. Every single combat phase, so long as you have that. We've got our beautiful evergreens. Voila, voila. This is if it has saddle, and this if it has been saddled. You'll see that there's the arrow pointing in. Cool. Plot. Plot is the next of our new mechanics. Plot is going to activate very similarly to how Cycled has worked in Puzzle Quest, where as long as you have the amount of mana that the plot requires in your hand, and you exile it from your hand, it will trigger the ability. So with this card here, as an example, Plot 6, it means that if we exile this card from our hand and we have at least 6 mana in our hand, then this will be exiled and it will gain the Plot emblem. When it gains that Plot emblem at the end of your turn, it's going to come back into your hand with full mana. And then when you cast it, you're going to get this bonus effect for having the plotted emblem on the card. In the case of Dust Animus, this is normally a 6 mana 2/3. It's got Plot 6, so you exile it from your hand while you have 6 mana in your hand. Keep in mind, this doesn't need to be the card that has the 6 mana. You just have to have it in your hand. Then when this creature enters the battlefield, if this card has the plotted emblem, this creature gets a permanent +4/+4 and gains lifelink permanently. I think that plot is... it functions very similarly to how it does in paper, but I think that in Puzzle Quest, this mechanic is pretty terrible. Just getting rid of a card to be able to then play it on your next turn. You don't even get it that turn. And then it stays in your hand at the end of your turn, right? It comes back, it stays in your hand, meaning it's very susceptible to discard. And so I haven't seen plot cards that really have a plot ability that like stands out to me where I feel like it's worth it to sacrifice turns to play it later, but we'll see. I have to test it. I don't want to totally knock something until I try it. But this mechanic here seems like a loss to me. This one is not good. I should say before I keep moving on, I think that Crime is going to be a really easy mechanic to trigger. And so I think that this one's a win. There's a lot of cards with it, and there's going to be a lot of interactions with it. So I think that this could be interesting. Saddle is going to be another one that's going to be really easy to trigger. There's a bunch of things with it. It doesn't matter what sets you're playing with. This one's going to be easy to go with. So I think that you could just run this in the flow of a normal deck and play with it, and it'll be fun. So I think that Saddle's another good one. Plot, not good. All right. We get this little map emblem, and that's the whole plot thing, right? This is if you have yet to succeed getting the plotted emblem, and if the card has the plotted emblem, you get the check mark. Voila. All right, Spree, next mechanic. This is the one that I got to spoil when the spoiler season started. I got to spoil a card called Caught in the Crossfire, which I think is pretty cool. Spree is another one that I think is just a fantastic mechanic. So the way that Spree is going to work is simply anytime that you match gems on your turn, your Spree counter is going to go up. That Spree counter will remain until the end of your opponent's turn. So basically, you really just get it for one turn, right? You get that Spree going up for one turn. Matches can be achieved by a swap. Your swap counts as a match. Any kind of cascade or double match counts as multiple matches. A gem conversion that creates matches will count as bonus matches as well. So I feel like Spree is going to be pretty easy to trigger and to get up on the ladder, especially with how much gem conversion we have in the game and how much more gem conversion is coming into the game. Spree cards can be Spree 1, Spree 3, Spree 2, Spree 4. 4 is the maximum, so it requires 4 matches to get that Spree 4 in a turn in order to be able to activate the bottom effect. But most of the cards seem to be between 1 and 3. You'll also notice that not all of them require that you have 1, 2, and 3, right? We don't have that continuous or contiguous set of numbers. Yeah. So in the case of something like 3 Steps Ahead, this is a 12 mana spell with Spree. If you've made 1 match on your turn, then you're going to discard a card and draw 2 cards. If you've made 3 matches on your turn, you're going to get this first effect, and you're also going to drain 5 mana from each card in your opponent's hand. And if you've made 4 matches in your turn, then you're going to get the first effect, the second effect, and you're going to create a copy of target non-token creature into the battlefield under your control. So the more matches you make, the stronger that Spree becomes, meaning that I think that Spree is going to be another mechanic that's going to be really easy to slot into your decks, regardless of whether or not you're playing with cards from the set. So as long as a Spree card stands out to you, and there are definitely a few that you're going to very much want to get your hands on, you can just slot it into most of your decks, and it should function fairly well. So Spree is another mechanic that I'm pretty excited for. On the whole, I'd actually say that of the new mechanics between Spree, Plot, Saddle, and Crime, I'm excited for 3 of those out of the 4, and so I'd say that's a pretty good win for us, right? Like, not everything's going to be perfect. I'll take that. I like that. Now, Outlaw, I'm not going to call a mechanic. This is just a hidden subtype to creatures. Basically, as long as creatures are assassins, rogues, pirates, warlocks, or mercenaries, they're going to count as outlaws. There are going to be cards that have bonus effects if you have outlaws. And so even in our upcoming event that we're going to be looking at, it's going to be based on outlaws as well, the perma support. So it's just something to keep in mind. But as you're building decks, if there's an event that requires outlaws, or if you're playing with cards that get boosts based on outlaws, those are just going to be assassins, rogues, pirates, warlocks, and mercenaries. So from here, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our new Planeswalkers. We have 2 new dual-colored Planeswalkers. The first of those is going to be our second Oko. This is going to be Oko the Ringleader. I really like this one. Actually, this one's going to be introducing some new stuff to the game. I mentioned earlier that there was going to be a Planeswalker that interacted with Crime, and that's going to be Oko. Right here, you'll see that Oko has 3 abilities that all have Crime in the keyword. And I actually really like this. I'll get into it why after I've gone over the abilities, because that will help it make a little bit of sense. But I like that we have the keywords from the set on a Planeswalker. So first ability, Gold Fever, is this is a blue-green Planeswalker. I don't know if I said that. I don't think I did. It's a blue-green Planeswalker. Blue-green is the best color combination in the game. Moving on. First ability, Gold Fever, costs 7 loyalty. It's very reasonable for a first ability. You're going to create 4 gold tokens. You're going to draw 2 cards. And if you've committed a crime, those cards that you've drawn are going to gain half their mana. If you haven't, then you're going to gain the crime emblem. So what I love about this is that you don't even need to have cards from the set. You're going to be able to gain the crime emblem just by using the first ability. And then by using that first ability to get the crime emblem, you could just keep using that first ability over and over again, because drawing 2 cards, making 4 gold tokens, and giving those cards that you've drawn half of their mana is a phenomenal ability. I would absolutely just spam that to the end of the day and get all of the mana and cards and more mana. So I just see this ability as a truly phenomenal ability. I was recently on a podcast from what's it? Nerd Thuggery's podcast. If you haven't checked out Nerd Thuggery, you should check out Nerd Thuggery's podcast. But I was in the roundtable, and it was with me and Main Loop and Nerd Thuggery and Gauze Master and another player that goes by Zibvert. And something that they were talking about was that they really like having first abilities that are really powerful. And I think that Oko the Ringleader's first ability definitely falls under that category. So I'm not sure if you're one of those people that thinks that a Planeswalker needs to have a good first ability for you to use it. If you are, let me know. I'm actually really curious to know how many people feel like a Planeswalker has to have a good first ability for it to be a viable Planeswalker. But this one's first ability, I think, is a phenomenal first ability. I could see this being like, this is an S plus tier first ability to me. Just to me, right? I haven't played with it yet. I don't know. But this looks absolutely incredible. Just so much mana, card draw, mana, and you gain the crime emblem. So really, really, really good looking. Second ability, Partner Duplicate. 10 loyalty. You're going to create a copy of a non-token creature you control into your hand and give it full mana. And if you've committed a crime, you're going to reinforce the creature that you selected. So this here is another phenomenal ability. Let's take, for example, Galta, right? So if you use Partner Duplicate, you're going to gain a copy of Galta into your hand. You're going to give it full mana, and then you're going to reinforce the Galta. So you're going to be gaining 30 power on that Galta by doing that. And then you're going to be able to play the other Galta, which is going to convert all the gems, which is going to get you a whole bunch of loyalty. And yeah, this ability here is an absolutely killer ability. It's going to be amazing for just wiping out your opponent. It's going to be amazing for objectives where you need to cast some number of creatures or summon some number of creatures, because you are just going to be creating extra copies of your creatures, giving them full mana, and then just immediately able to cast them on your turn. So, and you should be able to do that often, since this is only 10 loyalty. So 7 loyalty, 10 loyalty, these are both major wins in my book. S+ tier first ability, S+ tier second ability. Third ability, Thunder Heist, you're going to create 3 Grand Heist tokens. We're going to take a look at what those do in just a minute. And then if you've committed a crime, you're going to create 8 gold tokens. So you're going to be able to get a bunch of mana, and you're going to create the Grand Heist tokens. Those Grand Heist tokens are these things down here, which are going to have 3 shields. And they're going to say when a gold token is destroyed during your turn, you're going to fetch a random card from your opponent's hand. Yes, that will take the card from your opponent's hand and put it into your hand. And yes, this Planeswalker makes a ton of gold tokens, meaning that you're going to be able to just take all the stuff from your opponent's hand. If you can't take anything from their hand because they're out of cards in their hand, then you are going to fetch the first card from your opponent's library, and that card's going to gain full mana. And then at the beginning of your turn, the support is going to lose 1 shield. So it's slowly going to tick away, but you're going to make 3 of them. There's going to be a lot of gold tokens. Each one is going to trigger independently of a gold token being destroyed. And since you activate this ability before you make your gem swaps, you could activate the ability, make your gem swaps, take away your opponent's hand from them, potentially get a bunch of things from their library with full mana, and then this thing will start losing shields at the start of your next turn. So I think that this third ability definitely has potential to be good. I don't like playing with my opponent's cards. I really don't like playing with my opponent's cards, actually. But I do really like the idea of having a blue-green Planeswalker that's able to just steal your opponent's hand. Like, I can just go ahead and exile them from my hand if I don't want to cast them. But basically, just getting rid of your opponent's hand gives you a ton of control. So, honestly, just from these 3 abilities, my guess is that Oko the Ringleader is going to be an S+ tier Planeswalker. I think it's going to be in that top tier of Planeswalkers. It looks phenomenal. Now, Oko, the Ringleader, does have a drawback. I think it's a pretty sizable drawback. It's something to keep in mind, and that's the mana bonuses. So, Oko, the Ringleader, has the highest boost of +3 to both green and blue, and then a +2 to black. So, these mana bonuses are very underwhelming. However, I feel like these mana bonuses being underwhelming is in part because we're able to get so much gold onto the battlefield between the first and the third, with relatively low loyalty costs. We're able to give cards half mana over here. Green and blue convert a ridiculous number of gems as it is. And so between the loyalty, extra matches, conversion, mana, etc. that we're going to be getting, I honestly don't think that Oko the Ringleader is going to be struggling for mana. If I had to make a bold take, right, on this, I would say bold take, this Planeswalker could be better than Kasmina. Do I think that's going to be the case? No. But just as a bold take, right, I'm going to say that there's a possibility that this could be better than Kasmina. And I think that Kasmina is the best Planeswalker in the game. So, maybe yes, maybe no. When I make a video on this, definitely make sure to check it out, as I'll give my opinions on whether or not it is or isn't once I've gotten a chance to play with it there. Our next Planeswalker is going to be Daretti Ingenious Iconoclast. This is going to be a new red-black Planeswalker. This one is going to be based on artifacts and things going into the graveyard, right? So Daretti is an artifact goblin as it is in paper. So seeing Daretti here as a Planeswalker based on artifacts definitely makes sense. First ability is going to cost you 9 loyalty. You're going to destroy the top 6 cards of your library. You're going to return the first 2 artifact cards from your graveyard to your hand. And then you're going to give those things mana equal to the number of non-artifact cards in all graveyards times 2 with a maximum of 15. So basically, you're going to be destroying things from your library. You're going to be bringing artifacts back. You're going to be giving them a ton of mana, and then you're going to be playing them. First ability looks pretty good to me. I'm not a fan of 9 loyalty. I think that's a little bit too high, honestly. I know that you're getting things back. You're going to be able to play them. This is going to be giving, reasonable amount of mana. But I mean, just if you compare it to Oko's first, which costs 7, I feel like they're similarly good, but I still feel like Oko's first ability is better, and this costs more loyalty. So Could this be really good? Absolutely. If we wind up getting more really powerful artifacts, this thing could be a phenomenal Planeswalker with this first ability spam. We'll just have to see. Second ability, Tower Defense. You're going to create 6 Scrap Cog Chair tokens. These Cog Chair tokens are 0/2s, and then they're going to do damage to opposing creatures whenever they attack, equal to their reinforcements. So let's say that you use this ability once. They do have Defender as well. So let's say you use this ability once, you're going to get 1 copy and then 5 reinforcements, meaning that anytime anything attacks you, they're going to be doing 5 damage to that thing. They're 0/10s, or sorry, 0/12s, I should say, because it's 0/2, you're getting 6 of them. So they'll block things, and it can defend you. But honestly, these cog chairs for 15 loyalty are very underwhelming to me. Do I think they're interesting? Absolutely. They have flavor. They're interesting. If you're able to get a whole bunch of them, right? Like you're able to just keep activating the ability, you could create this wall that makes it so your opponent can't attack you. But yeah, this ability, not great. Third ability, Academic Reclamation. Deal X damage to each opposing target, meaning all of your opponent's creatures and your opponent themselves, equal to the number of artifacts you control, including their reinforcements. Then you're going to reinforce all of your artifact cards 3 times. This ability here is a banger of ability. This is a really good ability. So all your little gold tokens, all your little like treasures and stuff like that, all of your little thopters or whatever it is that you're doing, those are all going to start getting a lot of reinforcements, and then you're just going to be able to wipe your opponent's board realistically and then hit your opponent really hard with this ability over here. Furthermore, reinforcing all of your artifact cards 3 times means that even if you're not going like a spread deck where you're just making a whole bunch of little tiny tokens that reinforce, or gold, or things like that, and you're just going big, heavy hitting artifacts, reinforcing them all, every single artifact you control 3 times, is going to make your artifacts really deadly. I'm kind of sad that this ability costs 21 loyalty. It's a pretty high cost, but I love what the ability does. So this ability here definitely makes me excited to play with this Planeswalker. But because the third ability here is good but costs a lot, and the first ability could be good but also costs a lot, I'm going to guess that Daretti is going to be a mid-tier, thematically fun Planeswalker. I think it'll be really cool, and I'm glad that we're seeing Daretti entering Puzzle Quest, but I don't think that it's going to be a top-tier Planeswalker. So that's just my initial thought on it, right? I could be wrong, like totally wrong. It's just what I'm guessing. I'm going to guess that Daretti will be, yeah, mid-tier, somewhere B, C, somewhere around there. New event. Locomotive Looters. I'm going to scroll back in a little bit so we can read this a little bit better. Locomotive Looters is going to be a new PvP event. It's not going to be a coalition event. It's a standard event. It's got only 1 node. You're going to get all your nodes up front at 12 charges, and then you just play all of them, and you get your rewards. So the node is going to have this here luxurious locomotive here, right? Yep. Event support. And this is going to be themed on Outlaws. So when an outlaw creature you control deals damage to your opponent's Planeswalker, you're going to increase this card's level equal to the amount of damage that outlaw does. Then you're going to create a gold token, and then when this card's level becomes 50 or more, you're going to destroy all non-outlaw creatures, and each player is going to lose 50 life. Then this card's level is going to be reset to 1, and at the end of your turn, you gain 2 life for each treasure you control. So I wonder if this you gain 2 life for each treasure you control is actually you gain 2 life for each gold you control, because gold and treasure, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe treasure, gold are treasure. Let me know in the comments. Are golds treasures? I always think of treasures as those things from Ixalan, right? Where you've got 4 different unique treasures, but maybe gold counts as treasure. Anywho, this support is pretty nasty. I'm going to assume, based on this Locomotive Looters and the event, that we don't see what the event does, right? We don't see what the objectives are, but I'm going to assume that this is going to be an outlaw-themed node. And so as I'm going to assume this is going to be an outlaw-themed node, this could be really terrifying, right? Each player is going to have one of these, but you have to be careful about outlaws hitting you and increasing this thing's level, because both players losing 50 life is pretty terrifying. You could theoretically have a turn where back-to-back you and your opponent trigger this, and if you've both triggered this, you're both doing damage to each other. I don't know that you're both surviving that 100 damage between the 2 of you making this happen. So it's interesting. I'm excited to play this event. We'll have to see what the objectives are for sure. Next up, Booster boxes and collector boxes will be available on the very first day after the update is released. This is a good change. Booster boxes and collector boxes have not always been available day one. It's been one of those things where you could get like mana crystals and then buy packs that way. But if you're a person who spends money and you're willing to get one of these booster boxes or collector's boxes, these are like the next best thing to VIP. They're very expensive. I'm not saying that if you don't have the money for these, you should buy them. This is a product for whales, like 100%. I think they're like $80 and $100 for booster boxes and collector's boxes. However, if you do put money into the game and that money is not a big deal to you, then what you get out of these boxes is massive. These are really, really cool products. I really like them. I don't love the cost, but I love the product. So, changes and fixes. We're getting some changes to some of the events in the game. They're going to be fixing Harvest Tide to include the correct standard legal sets, and then they fixed an interaction between the Cosmos Charger rare and the Foretell. It's not going to cause an infinite loop anymore. That was just like effectively a crash. If this happened, you just lost the game. So there aren't too many cards that have what's it? Not suspend. I have the mechanic in my head. Foretell. There's not that many cards with Foretell. So, and this one's actually a decent one, which means you're probably going to run into it. And so not having this crash the game will be good. It's not an actual crash. It's the wrong terminology, but you're losing the game because it's just going infinite and your opponent's probably not going to stop it. Or if you do it, that's just oof, awful. Fixed an unintended interaction between Kimil, the Inner Sun, and Boast that prevented one of the objectives from Doomscar to be completed. Once again, we're fixing objectives to make it completable. That's a big win. Changed the support Rat Nest from Plague Control. So before, it made it so that at the beginning of your turn, you made these 2 rat tokens, and then when a rat card is destroyed or loses a reinforcement, each creature you control becomes a rat. Then all creatures you control that are either a rat or a mouse get a boost. And at the end of your turn, your opponent loses life, and you gain life equal to the number of rats you control, including their reinforcements. The rats themselves are pretty gnarly little buggers on their own, but having the event support do this and having the rats hit you was mean, to put it nicely. And so after the change, the rat support abilities don't trigger. At the beginning of your turn, you're going to make the rat tokens, and then you're going to increase this card's level by the number of rat subtype cards in play, and at the end of your turn, your opponent's going to lose life. You're going to gain life equal to the level plus the number of cards named Rat Swarm you control. So you're not going to be hit individually by all these Rat Swarm tokens. You're just going to be hit by this. I think this could be nice. I think it could be nice. Cards and Planeswalkers. Fixed some ability. Okay, fixed the ability Illusion of Free Will of Jace the Perfected Mind. It now is going to properly add the augmentation emblem to the Phyresis Converter supports. Your first ability is going to create the Phyresis Converters, and I believe that the third ability drops one down as well. But the way that the third ability presently works is it puts the emblem on, I think, just one of them. Maybe it'll put it on all of them now. Fixed the Phyresis Converter generated by Jace, which will now grant the completed Evergreen when Phyrexian gems are matched after a swap. Okay. Fixed loyalty ability on the Fallen Path. Epic fail. Fixed the loyalty ability, the Fallen on the Path from the Planeswalker Nahiri the Unforgiving, which will now correctly discard the last cards as opposed to the first cards from your hand. Yeah, that's a nice one. When I was testing this Planeswalker, if you check out my review on this Planeswalker, I found it pretty annoying that the first card in my hand was being removed as opposed to the last card, because that's how discard works. So, yeah. This is a nice change. Nahiri the Unforgiving is not a great Planeswalker, but nonetheless, it's always good when things function as they read. They changed Maleva the Stalwart. It's no longer going to be providing Indestructible. It's now going to be giving things Shield 2. Basically, Indestructible did not work at all, not even remotely. It did not protect your things. If this gave all your creatures Indestructible and then you wiped the board with a Destroy spell, they would still get destroyed, which is not how Indestructible was supposed to work. Now, after the change, this will work. However, they now have like a limited number of shields. Granted, you get this, every single turn, right? When it enters the battlefield, your creatures get shield 2? Well, no. It enters the battlefield and then that. So this is a very, very big nerf for this card. It didn't even work properly in the first place, so maybe it's a buff because now it does something, but it would have been cooler if it was the Indestructible. Fix the card Fuss. Yeah. This was something that I showcased in my kitty deck, Lord Windgrace, where Fuss was boosting non-token cards as long as they had reinforcements. It's not a really major change. It's just now it's only going to buff token creatures, which is still a good thing. Cards should function as they read. So I like this. This is good. Fixed ill-timed explosion. It'll no longer consider the current cost instead of the base cost. So, okay, won't consider the current cost instead of the base cost. All right, well, I mean, if you play something like Hazard's Undying Fury, right, like that's going to make something cost 0, I think. I think Pyromancer's Goggles does the same thing, so this would make it so that they would still do proper damage for ill-timed explosion. So I like that. That's good. Fixed Cavern of Souls. Oh, finally. Which will now correctly convert gems to the colors of the Planeswalker being used. This card has not worked. It was a card that you had to buy. This took too long to fix. This is a really cool card though, so I'm excited that I can play it now. I've just like seen it there in my collection and just been like, I'm not using this. It does not work right. Now it could actually be good, so I'm gonna need to test it again after this. I'm glad that they're fixing it. Fixed solved effect of card Case of the Crimson Pulse. It'll now deal the correct amount of damage to creatures without reinforcements. Cool. Fixed random selection of effects such as that of Crawl Whipcracker will no longer prioritize creatures over supports. Okay, randomized, getting rid of. I wonder if this will impact Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, because Teferi, Hero of Dominaria gets rid of random stuff and absolutely prioritizes creatures. So this could be a very strict nerf to Teferi right here. Random selection effects will no longer this is a nerf to Teferi. That is absolutely what this is. That's surprising. Okay. I mean, that is how it should be, I think, right? Like, I think that's how it should be. Now, we've got some more card effects that destroy random stuff in the set. Interesting that they just made Teferi universally available in Commodore Guff, and then they immediately nerf Teferi here. By nerf, I mean fix, so you could take that with a grain of salt. This is how it is supposed to work. I am glad that this here was changed, but for those of you who play Teferi and are all of a sudden like, my Teferi is broken. No, it's just going to be working properly now. Fixed Kylox's Volstrider. The effect will now trigger even if the player doesn't have a spell in hand. Cool card. I like that. Fixed Plague Crafter. This will now perform its effects following the conditions described. Okay. Fixed Case of the Shattered Pact Solve Emblem, which will be granted after its required condition is met. Okay. Fixed Candlesticks effect, which will now perform Surveil 2 instead of 1. Okay. Fixed Selecting Not Now in the prompt to transform a cloaked creature. It'll no longer prevent other creatures from being played. Cool. Yeah, Cloaked is really fun. I need to make a video on that. Love it. Other, small little thing. Two little things. Okay. Reverted Authority of the Consoles to its original functionality. This is basically just that it seems that they want cards that have like a disable something that enters the battlefield to like properly disable it so that their activate effects don't happen. So this is just to provide more options for counterplay. And then changed War of the Spark, Mythic plus Vanguard booster packs. God, this should have happened years ago. To the same standard as other Vanguard boosters. Costs 400 jewels and is non-duplicate. This is huge. These have never been non-duplicate, so this will be really nice. I think there are some of these that are just so dang rare. These War of the Spark Mythics Vanguards, because they're all like you could get duplicates, and so that's a really cool thing. So I really like this. I really like it. I can't wait to go over the new set with you guys. I'm especially excited for Oko. I really like the new mechanics. I'm really excited that these patch notes came out, which means that the new set will likely be dropping early next week. So we'll have to see. Don't take my word for it. I'm just guessing, speculating, right? Conjecture. But yeah, that's it for me for this. Let me know which of the new mechanics you guys are excited for. Let me know if you're as excited for Oko as I am. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.